Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of The Fad Show. On today's episode, I'm going to take you with me while I do the last minute checks on my 100 Series Toyota Land Cruiser before its first Overland journey. I have a few more upgrades, modifications, maintenance items before I go, and then I'll kind of show you the basic setup that I'm going to be using for my trip. So with that, let's get to it. So the first thing I did off camera was I went ahead and installed all new light bulbs. So I went with the Osram night breakers. I'm not sure if you can see that blue lens in there. But I replaced both the low beams, both of the high beams. And then for the fog lights, I went ahead and replaced with these, Chinese LED ones. And then I got the yellow ones to, add 10 horsepower and 1 inch of lift to your vehicle to make it look cool. I don't know. I've never been crazy about yellow fogs, but I'll give them a try. Supposedly they're supposed to help with seeing in tricky conditions or whatever. So I just wanted to have all new lights, and I actually was thinking about making a video on the lights alone just as like a before and after shot. But I didn't think like going from a halogen to a halogen there would be that noticeable of a difference, but it was actually pretty surprising. I mean, these are the halogens I run in every car I have that has halogens, but they're awesome. They're definitely a lot brighter than the kind of no-name brand ones that were in there. And yeah, they're never going to look as white or as like clear white as an HID or an LED, but they're definitely more white than the ones that were in there. But one thing I noticed when I had to remove the battery to replace the headlights, here's the access for low beam and for the high beam. But one thing I noticed is that the battery on my car was about 3.5 years old, which where I live in Texas, that means it's pretty much at the end of its life. I wasn't having any issues with it, but I wanted to have a fresh battery for my trip. So I went out and bought a new battery. I also wanted an AGM, just because as you can see, this battery has definitely been or one of the batteries that was in here over time was definitely leaking, because you can see all this corrosion and discoloration all around here that is not on the other side. So that is 100% caused by the electrolyte leaking out of the battery. So I'm going to clean this whole area up. And then that's the main thing I like about AGMs, besides like the higher capacity, is just the fact that they're sealed so they don't leak. They do have a relief that can lift, but I've never had it happen on one of mine. So so the AGM battery is not, or the size, I wanted to upgrade the size, which will not be a direct fit for the 100 series. So you can get the stock like 24 size and that'll fit fine. But my truck before already had an upgraded lead acid and it had the 27F. So I ended up going with the H7, which is about exactly the same, width and length as the 27F. It's just shorter. I was hoping that it was going to fit on the factory battery tray, but it's just ever so slightly too big. But I needed a spacer to raise it up anyway, so I'm not really that upset about it. So I cut this piece of 3/4 inch plywood to fit perfectly in the OEM spacer, and that spaces up high enough that the factory mounting bracket actually mounts perfectly in here. So obviously I'll show you when I go to install it, but I think this is definitely going to work out. It's like almost like this was meant to be as far as that fitting in there. I'm going to be installing that. And I wanted to put a new air filter in also, just because when I first got the truck, I took this air filter out and inspected it, and it looked brand new, so I didn't replace it. But I just want to have a spare in case I go somewhere really dusty, that I can change it out if I need to while I'm on the road. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the new one in. The one that's in there, I'll just blow out with my air compressor, and then I'll keep it in one of my drawers in case I ever need it when I'm on the road. And then there's a few other things I want to check, like all my fluid levels and stuff. And then I'll show you some additions I did to mount stuff on the roof and in the back. So I guess I'll start with the battery. I already went ahead and vacuumed out this area. Now I'm just gonna try and clean it the best I can before I put the new battery in. All right, so like I said, I went ahead and vacuumed this out. Now I'm just gonna spray a bunch of water in here to try and dilute any of the electrolyte that is left in here. And then wipe it out, and then obviously I'll come in with some cleaner afterwards. But sometimes, like, this one's obvious because it's all like has a like rusty corrosion color to it. But sometimes these electrolytes will leak and you won't even notice it until you're wearing short sleeves and you brush your arm up against something, and then you'll be wondering why your arm is burning. So that's why I personally, even though some people will question whether our battery charging system is compatible with AGM, I know a lot of people on I Hate Mud, the kind of Land Cruiser forum, have used them, and no one's reported any issues. I've done it in the past and haven't had any issues, so I'm just gonna go with it. Go for it. But like I said, you definitely want to be wearing gloves when you do this, and cover your eyes and don't touch your eyes. All right, so here's how the area looks after. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. That kind of like corrosion particles that build up on there is just like really hard to get off, and I didn't want to use anything too abrasive to start pulling the paint off. I used a Brillo pad, and that seemed to work the best. Then I cleaned up the battery terminals with emery cloth, so they're down to bare copper. And then cleaned off the factory battery tray as best I can, or could. So now I'm gonna put all this stuff back in here and go ahead and mount the new battery. So my 3/4 inch plywood spacer just fits perfectly in that factory battery tray. I can't remember if I mentioned it already or not, but when I took this out the first time, I went ahead and cleaned it up with some rust reformer, washed it down, and then I painted it black. It was pretty nasty to begin with. I'm not sure it's really relevant to AGMs, but I always like to put this battery terminal protector on here after I put a new battery on. It just seems to help prevent the corrosion. And here it is, an H7 battery mounted in 100 series. I mean, this thing is rock solid and not going anywhere. So I'm happy with it. And then the clearances, I mean, look at how much space you have for the AC lines. And for me, I have an aftermarket amps in my car, so that's what these two positives are going to. So there's room for that on the side. That's why I know a lot of people, you put the AGM 49 in here, which is 2 inches longer than this, so be about 1 inch further on each side. So for me, that would be really close to the radiator and the AC lines, and then pinching these lines. So that was kind of the reason I did this one instead of the 49. This still is a big improvement over the stock battery. I can put this specs up on the screen because I don't, off the top of my head, remember exactly the difference, but I know it is 140 more cold cranking amps than the OEM battery. As far as the discharge capacity, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, pretty sweet. Definitely happy with the fitment. It's like almost like it was meant to be with this, how it fits in the H9. And I'm very confident that even on the trail, this is not gonna go anywhere. I test fitted earlier and made sure that the hood was still gonna close too, so. There's just all these metal clips. Actually, one of mine is missing, fortunately. I'm 99% certain I know which way it goes, but it's kind of nice when they put the direction of airflow on them. There it goes. Turns out I did not have to loosen this. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is check all my fluids. So the truck's been sitting for like, I don't even know, maybe a week, possibly even more. So I know that this accumulator is already bled off all the way, but to check the brake fluid level in these, you have to press the pedal like 40 times while the truck's off to completely depressurize the accumulator, and then you can check the level, and it should be right at the max when it's fully bled off. So that's exactly where mine is right now. I'll run the truck in a second to check the, so I can check the oil. Power steering is over here. I just use a light to be able to see the level. Just shined on the side. And, right below max there, so I'm good. As far as my radiator expansion tank, that was good. And then I always open up the cap here to make sure there's no air bubbles in here, which there's not. Alright, so now I'm gonna run it for about 30 seconds. I'll check the oil level, and then I'm gonna check the transmission fluid level when it's hot. So I'm gonna take it, drive it to the gas station later to fill it up with gas for my trip. So it's ready to go, and then I'll check the transmission fluid level while it's hot. Perfect as far as the cold level goes. I think this winter on the channel I'm going to finally do the exhaust manifolds because they're getting progressively worse. Ugh. That's right in the middle, so that should be good. Bring some oil on the trip to check it. I have noticed that my oil pan has just ever so slightly started weeping. Of course I didn't do that when I had the transfer or the front differential out. Of course I forgot to mention one more thing, that I'm gonna check my tire air pressures. I noticed this one was a little bit low. I was hoping not to get the pressure out, but this one was low enough I have to have air. Perfect. All right, so a few more things I wanted to point out. Here are my traction boards that I mounted on the roof. It was actually kind of difficult to figure out a good way to mount them. I obviously wanted to keep them like as low of a profile as I could so they don't make any noise on the highway. So I'm not sure you can see, but I ended up using all thread and then some washers, and I bought like a piece of ABS plastic off of Amazon. Basically just made a sandwich to kind of hold on to the rails of the roof rack, and then just drilled holes with the spacing of the traction boards and then ran the all thread up. And then I'm just using the kind of like knobs that came with the X-Bolt traction boards, but I might eventually put wing nuts on there because I don't like how they bottom out. You can't like thread them down to squeeze it. It is a pretty good press fit, but anyways. And then coming around back, I made a video on my front, rated tow hooks, and I'm just buying a trailer hitch one for the rear. And then moving inside, I'll show you the kind of gear that I guess one more thing before I go in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to reach to you so you can see it, but I did put a double jerry can Baja rack mount on the top so I can carry my water jug and a 5-gallon jerry can, or whatever they are, 20 liters, 25 liters, I don't know, whatever. A jerry can, NATO jerry can, and a NATO water jug on the top. This is actually the rack or whatever for the jerry can. And I can't do this with one hand. But this, I guess, is going to be my like recovery / gear for the truck. So I have my tool bag in here, which I'll show you in a minute. What I'm going to carry in here, if anyone's curious. And I got a first aid kit. I got recovery straps, soft shackles, a bottle jack. In addition to, I still have the factory jack. I think that's the Smitty built tire repair kit. So like heavy duty plugs. I also have their air down kit and a shovel. Yeah, I already pointed out the ball jack, first aid kit, and then these are emergency 2-wheel drive hubs. If I ended up blowing out a front differential, those just go on as like a dust cover, so you can take the hub axle flanges off, and then you would be able to, run in 2-wheel drive. This 50 cal ammo can I got at Harbor Freight. I'm just planning to use as a trash can. I just wanted something that's sealed so it wouldn't like smell inside the vehicle. So this has like a rubber grommet on here. I'm not sure how good it is, but it'll probably work. I was gonna get a Pelican or one of the Harbor Freight Pelican cases, but this was like way cheaper than those. And some extra engine oil and some transmission fluid, which is the same for power steering on the 100 series. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to organize this. It's still a work in progress, but that is everything in there. Alright, so I saved this part for the end of the video. For those who think toolbox tours are boring, me personally, I could spend hours watching YouTube videos of people giving a tour of their toolbox. I don't know why, I just found it the most fascinating thing in the world. But basically my goal for my tools was to have enough equipment that I could do emergency 2-wheel drive conversion on the trail if I needed to. So that's a hammer, which would be used with the punch for removing the I forget what they're called, but on the hub axle flanges, those brass, yeah, it'll come to me. And then the channel locks to pull them out. And then I have this kit of whatever, this roll strap of metric wrenches. So I guess like the biggest ones would be 14 millimeter for removing the, that's 13. 14 millimeter for removing the drive shaft. The nuts on the drive shaft that hold the two flanges of the drive shaft together. God, I don't know why the words are not coming to me right now. And then obviously a ratchet, which that's a 14 millimeter bolt and a 14 millimeter nut head. So you'll need two 14 millimeters. So this and this on one side, and then that 14 millimeter on the other side to remove the nuts on the drive shaft. Some screwdrivers. I ended up getting a breaker bar just to leave in the car, and I just bought one 22 millimeter half-inch drive deep well socket for removing the lug nuts. I figured this will be easier than using the one in the Toyota or whatever, the factory spare tire kit or whatever. Also some deep wells, because sometimes you need them when nuts bottom out. Bringing some Allen wrenches and OBD2 code reader in case I need to read a code or reset it while we're on the trail. And then just some kind of one extension, one U-joint in case something's tricky to get to, just one adjustable wrench. I used to carry this every single day with me when I worked on a ship at sea, and it was kind of amazing how many times a day you would end up using it. So this has like a lot of sentimental value. I actually cut the end of it off so it would fit in my coverall pocket. Anywho, paracord, super glue, needle nose pliers, WD-40. Thought I meant to put the duct tape in here too. I'll have to go grab that. You need to have the WD-40 and the duct tape so you can follow the engineer's flow chart for repair, and does it move, should it move, and then go either way. And I guess that's it. I guess I did bring or buy a 1/2 inch to 3/8 reducer if I really want to break one of these cheap sockets with the breaker bar, or if something's really tricky to get off. So that's all I'm bringing. I really didn't want to add too much weight. I mean, obviously you could get super carried away and bring whatever crazy amount of tools, but this is pretty much what I bring for all my cars. Obviously for the German cars, I'll bring triple squares and Torx bits also, but I haven't really found anywhere on the Land Cruiser where those are used. They do use Allens some places, so that's why I have these. But yeah, that's all my Overland gear and my recovery gear, my truck kind of mechanical stuff. Obviously I'm bringing camping stuff too, but won't bore you with that. So that's a wrap on this episode, guys. I think the truck is pretty much ready to go. Pretty much the only last thing I'm gonna do once I get it fully loaded with all the camping gear and stuff, I'm gonna check the ride height and I'll adjust the torsion bars to just keep my kind of desired ride height that I like my truck at, which is like 550 or yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna set it to my preferred ride height, which is about 560 millimeters in the rear and then 535 millimeters in the front, measured from the center of the hub to the underside of the fender. I don't know, I just like the truck rides like that, and it gets me a pretty good lift. Obviously I can't do anything about the back. The back will just be what it will be. But the front, I like to keep that 1 inch lower than the rear because it just makes it drive so much better. Anyways, yeah, nothing that was really rocket science today, but if you want to let me know if I forgot anything, I'll already be on the trip by the time this video comes out, but for next time or whatever, I always appreciate comments and feedback. As always, if you guys like this episode, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next time. Thank you. Bye.